And hello everybody, welcome to Hyrule Academy here every Friday night at 10 p.m. US Eastern Time. I am your host and instructor for the evening, Super MC Gamer. I hope everyone out there is doing fantastic and wonderful, whether you're tuning in live over on Radio Hyrule right now or listening to our recorded audio version, which you can download every week at radiohyrule.com, or possibly even listening live on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/SuperMCGamer. Hello to everybody. I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Everybody in the chat is going absolutely bazonkers and very excited for tonight's discussions and talking and fan theories and, of course, some awesome music if you're listening in live. So first off, I want to tell you guys what you were just listening to, if you're listening in live. That was Transistent Shadows by Will Rock over at OC Remix. A wonderful, pumpy remix of the Dark World theme to get us really excited for talking about our subject of the week, which is the Dark World. So in case you are unfamiliar with the Dark World, let me give you a little bit of backstory. Now, we're going to be basically focusing on the Dark World from A Link to the Past. The Dark World is a term that's been used in many Zelda games, but what we're going to focus on specifically here is the Dark World from A Link to the Past, because that is the Dark World. It's not like a Dark World. It's not a place called Dark World. It is the Dark World. It's very specifically the Dark World. So let's go back to Ocarina of Time before we get into A Link to the Past. So, inside Ocarina of Time, there's a moment when Ganondorf obtains the Triforce of Power from the Sacred Realm. It's right when you pull the Master Sword, and he comes and he says, "Thank you for allowing me into the Sacred Realm," or something along those lines. And when he touches the Triforce splits into three pieces and is distributed to Link, Zelda, and himself, Ganondorf. And at that moment is when the Sacred Realm becomes a land of evil. It's a reflection of greed and evil that is in his heart. And that's when the Sacred Realm becomes the Dark World. It is at that moment, as opposed to a different moment when he wishes upon the Triforce, which apparently he never does. Now we're going to be inside one of the three split timelines here. The timeline we're going to follow is the hero defeated timeline. Following the defeat of the Hero of Time, Ganondorf is going to gain all three pieces of the Triforce. He's going to have all three. He can do whatever he wants. But however, before he can really get to use that power too much, he is still sealed within the Sacred Realm, which is now the Dark World. So he is trapped inside the Dark World. Just Ganondorf, his Triforce, and the monsters within it. So people, over time, they start to hear that there's the Triforce in the Sacred Realm just waiting to be claimed. And they're like, well, guys, why aren't we after this? So they begin to seek it. They fight at the entrance of the Dark World and start to try to break it open, try to go get their Triforce to become all powerful themselves. They end up breaking the seal that the sages left, and Ganon's armies begin to flood the world. And it's at that moment they realize, we did a very stupid thing, and we need to reseal this place. And so the Hyrulean army begins to invade and fight Ganon's armies in what we call the Imprisoning War. The Imprisoning War is a very exciting event in Hyrule history, and we'll cover it at a different day. I'm sorry to Captain Trader, who's in my chat, obviously foaming at the mouth with me mentioning the Imprisoning War, but not this time. Not today. So the seven sages will again seal the Dark World. They manage after the end of this war to seal him away, and it's all good. And remains sealed until Aghanim weakens the seal, or Aghanim, however you may say it, by capturing the maidens. Aghanim, a wizard working for Ganon, comes and captures the maidens, the granddaughters or the descendants of the seven sages that sealed the Dark World originally. Later on, Link travels to the Dark World and saves the maidens and rescues the Triforce and uses the power of the Triforce to restore the Light World and similarly the Sacred Realm back to what it once was. So that is a huge coverage of basically everything about the Dark World. However, we do have some questions for you guys here inside the audience tonight, and I want you guys to be discussing this as we go along with the show. We got lots of great theories to talk about. First off, where is the entrance to the Dark World? The Imprisoning War was fought there, so it must be a real location. The last place we thought the entrance to the Dark World was was inside the Temple of Time. Are people actually fighting at the Temple of Time? Is the Temple of Time destroyed? I want to know you come in some of your theories on that. Also, how are these common Hylians able to break the seal of the Dark World? The 7 sages themselves put it in place. What gives these Hylians, no matter what sort of weapons they hold, how can they do this? And lastly, why are the maidens still the ones holding the power of the seal? Does the sacred power that these sages hold actually get passed down? I want to know. So you guys are going to need to tell me. Give me your theories inside the chat over at radiohyrule.com/chatroom, and we will feature your messages later on inside the show. But for now, it's time to get back to some music. I got a great playlist of songs for you tonight. First up, first of all, I should say, I hope you're not going to get sick of the Dark World theme, because you're going to be hearing that a lot. So let's get right back into it. Thank you for tuning into Hyrule Academy. Welcome back to Hyrule Academy, my good friends. Tonight's discussions have been quite interesting. I've been watching this chat like a hawk, and I have some great excerpts from you guys. However, I must press you all to try to get into the theory crafting zone of things. Currently, the chat is full of question marks. I see a lot of question marks and not many periods. That's where we need to get to. I want to see some exclamation points. I want to see resounding discoveries. That's what it's all about. It's that moment when you're making theories about a video game series that really make you so excited. That's why I love The Legend of Zelda. There's those moments where it just hits you and you just it makes you scream in your head. You're just like, wow, how did I never notice this before? I had a moment like this with my friend Silver one time. He was over at my house after one of the Zeldathons that I did, and it was shortly after Skyward Sword had released, and he had played the game for the first time, and he realized, wait a minute, this is the first game in the timeline. It all makes sense. The Minish Cap has a floating city as well. Maybe they're related, and that all got him thinking, and that's one of those times where it's really cool that The Legend of Zelda does this. Anyways, what were you listening to? I went off on a little tangent. First up, you heard Lost Dark World by Longdeo. Longdeo as a contributor to the OC Remix. Wonderful tune. I really love the take he took on both the Dark World theme and the Skull Woods theme. Thank you very much for that. In addition, thank you to Zelda Reorchestrated for their wonderful reorchestration of the Dark World Dungeon theme. I had to put a little bit of Dark World Dungeon into the playlist tonight. There's not much out there in terms of Dark World Dungeon covers and remixes. So if you're out there, get to work. Make some tunes, make some Zelda tunes. It makes me very happy. Similarly, somebody who took the initiative was Donovan Wright. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's Donovan Raitt, and that was his Dark World solo guitar acoustic cover, and it blew my mind today. There was a moment where I was getting near the end of my playlist creation. I was like, this song has to be in there. It's going to make the playlist a bit longer than I intended, but I'm putting it in because it's too good, and I hope you guys will agree with me on that one. Anyways, back into discussions. One thing I wanted to touch on here while you guys continue all your theory crafting inside the chat is one reason why we're not saying inside the chat, is the Dark World Lorule, is the Dark World Termina, because they are both not the same. They are all 3 separate dimensions. And it all revolves around the Sacred Realm. The Sacred Realm is the key, because the Dark World is, of course, the Sacred the Sacred Realm transformed. And Lorule is a land with its own Sacred Realm and its own Triforce, and that alone is enough to make you stop and say, wait a minute, there is no way for them to be the same. No way at all. Lorule is not the Dark World. It uses the same tune because it's a similar concept. It is the game progressing because it is a successor to that game. But it is not, and I repeat, not the Dark World. Mostly because inside that timeline, may I remind you, we wish for the Sacred Realm to return to normal, and it's a bright, happy place again. It's not the Dark World, it's not Lorule, and it doesn't have its own Triforce. And Termina is obviously not the Dark World, because it's a land with no mentions of the Triforce whatsoever. Wouldn't the place that it would house the Triforce be at least something have to do with it? Not only that, but it's not a land of tranquility as it would be in the child timeline, because Termina is in the child timeline where we see it, and Link wins. He did, inside that timeline, Hyrule and the Sacred Realm are safe. So it's obviously not the same, because the Sacred Realm was back in Hyrule, just chilling, being beautiful. No harm done. It's quite happy place out there. So yeah, Termina and Lorule are their own worlds. Also, they're not the afterlife. I saw that in the chat. Please watch the Termina episode if you want more information on that one. But I just wanted to throw that into the discussions before you guys started to mix those in too much. Keep up the discussions and theory crafting, everybody, and keep it tuned into Radio Hyrule. Go to radiohyrule.com/chatroom if you're listening live but not in the chat room, and start chatting with us about your favorite Zelda fan theories here about the Dark World tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. And welcome back to Hyrule Academy, friends and family. Welcome. I hope you're excited, because that is the time of the night at long last where I take all of the gobbledygook that you guys have just been throwing about inside the chat room, and I'm going to try to make a little bit of sense of it, and hopefully we can come to some conclusive theories through it. It is an exciting part of the show, to be sure, but before we get into that exciting part of the show, we do need to recap what you've been listening to, right? Right. So first up was the Dark World theme on Marimba by Mart0ZZ. So that's MART0ZZ. Give them a YouTube search. They do a lot of Marimba covers, and I was very impressed by their Dark World theme. And while I'm usually a little bit apprehensive about the Marimba category of cover, I couldn't resist this time. I could not resist, so it goes into the playlist, and I hope you guys gave it a lot of love. After that, we heard I Fight Ganon live from the I Fight Dragons band. Everybody in the chat really enjoyed that one. Thank you to I Fight Dragons for their wonderful Zelda tune that they did there. Everybody in the chat seemed to give it a lot of love. Give the full video a watch, too. There's a little bit of a funny story with it if you watch the video version. Then lastly, we heard the Dark World Ballad by Cliff Hooper, and this is their name. This isn't me being a jerk. Effin' Jerk is the remixer's name. Thank you for your song. And thank you for making me say that live to you on a radio show. So thank you all very much for listening into those music. But now, guys, it's time to get into some theories. All right, so let me bring over the royal document. All right, so first we're going to talk about how the Hylians broke into the Dark World. So, Sora107 says, perhaps the power of the sages are based on the beliefs of the people. If the people stop believing and all the people band together, couldn't they reasonably overpower the sages? Well, that's a good theory. It's never explicitly said inside any game that the power of sages are based on the beliefs of the people. If that's a theory you want to go with, then I give you all the power in the world, because it's never explicitly said where the power of the sages comes from, if it's from the goddesses, the Triforce, or some other means. Perhaps they're just super powered up, people, because all Hylians do contain a little bit of sacred power from the general consensus of the fan base. So it's a very possible thing. I'm not going to reject that theory at all. I'm not going to try to outright say it's wrong, but it's a good theory. I wanted to give it some shout outs here on the show. After that, we heard Giovanni Vaughn say about the Hylians. I heard/read that the Hylians have the ability to use magic and the like. That is correct. I'm sure after gathering other races affected by Ganondorf's curse, it was easy to rally a force behind them. That many people in Union could have sprouted a power unbeknownst to Hyrule. So kind of what Sora said, but in a different way. Instead of not believing in the sages, instead they believed in themselves. So Giovanni Vaughn's theory is that they gathered a bunch of Hylians and they all used their sacred power to together open the sacred realm, which is a very possible theory. And I'm a huge fan myself of the sacred power theory, that every Hylian has a little bit in them. And, powerful Hylians could do Dragon Ball Z style energy balls or whatever, I think that's very cool because, hey, Ganondorf can do it. What stops other people from doing it? Ganondorf does it when he doesn't even have the Triforce of power. I think I want to go with stuff like that. Yasitaru kind of is going on the right track as well with this, similar to Giovanni Vaughn. Says, the Hylians breaking in might have not been them alone, but them pressuring the sages and maidens at the time to open the way for them to get into this land of great power. But Ganon was waiting for this exact thing to happen and used it as an opportunity to attack Hyrule. So yeah, Yasutaru's theory is that perhaps the Hylians said, all right, sages, here's the deal. We need the Triforce. Ganon, or maybe not Ganon, but they're like, hey, sages, we need to get in there. We're going to go get the Triforce. We're going to bring it back to Hyrule where it belongs. And eventually the sages said, okay, let's do it. And they opened it up, and oopsie doopsies, suddenly monsters pour out of a portal or whatever. And that's a situation and a half right there. Slowpoke as a gamer says, the Dark Mirror is how the Hylians could get in without kidnapping the maidens. But the question is, how was the mirror created? A rogue descendant of the sages? So there's a lot of theory that's in here about the mirror that I heard tonight. So the magic mirror is an item that you gain inside the game that allows you to portal from the dark world back to the light world. It does not allow you to portal from the light world into the dark world, if I remember correctly. That's a very important point. Because what you're able to do is you're able to find portals in the overworld. Am I wrong in this? I haven't played A Link to the Past very recently. I could be wrong. I mostly am a study of theory, not gameplay. But I could be wrong in that. But so yeah, perhaps the Dark Mirror or the Magic Mirror, whatever it's called, is possibly connected to how the Hylians got in. Perhaps the Hylians invented it. But the problem is, how could they go from the light world into the dark world? It's a very interesting situation. So a good theory from Slowpoke as a gamer. So Cyfarwydd, I'm just going to spell it out. Cyfarwydd. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm just going to call you Cy. Cy says, I still think that the Hylians can break through because of the partial sage blood flowing through their veins. If the sage's powers are genetic, you can't have perfect bloodlines through and through. It's gonna spread out partially, at least. And so, Sai is saying, don't worry, we're going into the power of the blood of these sages, and perhaps that sacred power and the sage's seal got passed out, and maybe somebody was like, hey, wait a minute. We can use this sage to our advantage, or this partial sage, and they can help us remove the seal. So that's a very, very possible theory. I'm going to say, Sci-Far, that's some good stuff there. And you're right on track. Now, I'm sorry to kind of do this to all your theories, but Captain Trina, of course, a wonderful listener, has the Historia at her side and says, from the Historia, it says, the kingdom fell into ruin during the imprisoning war, and the bloodlines of the Hylians weakened with the ages, until their existence was naught but a thing of the past. The sage's power also waned. Now, while the original seal was undone before the imprisoning war, it's very possible that the bloodlines thinning over time could also mean the sage's power also thinned right then. And that's, in the Historia says it right there about the bloodlines weakening. It's very explicit in saying that. So, the power of these bloodlines is a very possible theory. So, whichever theory you subscribe to out of those on how the Hylians broke in, that's for you to decide at home. I'm not going to say either way. I think we have some great theories, and I'll subscribe to one in my brain, but I'll let you guys decide at home what you think. Next up, Yasutaru says, I'm not entirely sure the entrance to the Sacred Realm is at a static position, so we're going to start talking about where the entrance to the Dark World in the Sacred Realm is. Lightgazer says, you first entered the Dark World when Aghanim sent you there, or Aghanim as it were. And Slowpoke's Gamer says, yeah, so the question is, does Link fighting Aghanim at the ruins of the Temple Time, or does Aghanim simply have some sort of great power to open a gateway there in his own? So, what he is saying is that perhaps that when Aghanim sends you to the Dark World, perhaps that location on top of Hyrule Castle is actually the same place where the Temple of Time once was, and that's where the entrance to the Sacred Realm was in Ocarina of Time, of course, where the Master Sword was. It's a very possible theory, actually, that perhaps they just rebuilt over the Temple of Time, at least partially. Hey, you got all the bricks right there just waiting, why not? Afterwards, Slowpoke's Gamer says, at the end of Ocarina of Time, it's presumable that Ganon got sealed away at the end of the castle, at the site of the castle, since that's just where he would have killed Link. Therefore, there could be a second entrance at the castle, which is how Link gets there in the first place. How Link gets sent there in the first place. So perhaps they just rebuilt the castle over Ganon's castle. So, I mean, they're very close in location in Ocarina of Time, the Temple of Time and Ganon's castle. So what Slowpoke's game are saying is, one of those two spots is a very plausible entrance point for the, a very good point for the entrance to the Dark World. After that, I would like to quickly quote Captain Trina, who says, "The entrance to the Sacred Realm was sealed once again, tight enough that it should have never been reopened. And that was after the imprisoning war." Unfortunately, as you know, that was not unfortunately going to happen. But I find it a little bit interesting that quote from the Historia really helps us understand this all a little bit better. Now, before I sign out of this little section, there's one more quote I'd like to give you from the chat. And that's from Ripper Steve M5, who says, "Could alternative ways into the Sacred Realm / Dark World been opened up when it was broken out of? So perhaps, however the Hylians broke in, we don't know. We have many theories we talked about already. Perhaps when the Hylians broke in, something happened where this tear suddenly allowed all the monsters of the Dark World to open up these different portals. And while it eventually was resealed at the end of the imprisoning war, all these tears still exist inside the world. And there's something that I know I said that the Dark World is not Lorule, and I subscribe to that. That's fair. That's not even a subscribe type of thing. It's definitely not the same place. But perhaps it's very similar to how when Yuga made the one tear between the worlds, that the more even more appeared. It's very similar because you don't really go back into the Dark World until after Aghanim sends you there for the first time. So that's where I think we really have to kind of look at that and say, that is a good thing right there. So I'm going to keep it at that, my friends. I'm going to keep it at that and let you guys kind of think about it tonight rather than trying to stuff my own theories down your throat. But now, guys, before we finish off tonight's show, we do have a few more things to say. But first, we've been spending a lot of time in the Dark World, guys. And I think we need to make a wish on the Triforce and seal it away and restore it back to the Sacred Realm. Enjoy the music. Welcome back, friends and theorists, here to Hyrule Academy, where we've been working very hard inside our chat room tonight, making sure that we nail down every last detail about the Dark World and find out what makes it tick, or more explicitly, where it is and how you get it. But whatever, I'm fine with how tonight's discussions have gone. And are you guys in the chat happy? Are you guys in the YouTube comments happy? I'm happy. Fantastic. Wonderful, Master. Alright, so here's the dealio. You guys just listened to two great piano covers of two of my favorite pieces from the Legend of Zelda universe and beyond. First up was the Triforce Chamber piano cover by Boozin' Walsh. Boozin' Walsh. Wonderful cover. Great quality on the recording. Very excited to hear that today. I was very impressed by that cover, so many shout outs to them. And after that was the credits roll from the video game pianist who actually put up that track only 2 days ago. And it was because of a special request from yours truly that he did a cover of that song. And many thank yous to him for that wonderful cover. Go check him out on YouTube and give him all of your love. Because that song, Credits Roll, is not only my favorite song in the Zelda universe, it's my favorite song, period, inside of the entire world. No other set of notes will make me as happy as that song right there. Anyway, so tonight's discussions were surely wonderful. We came to a lot of different theories about how the Hylians broke on into this place called the Dark World in the Sacred Realm. There were thoughts of perhaps the belief in the Sages fell and that made their power weaken. Perhaps they used their combined gifted sacred power that all Hylians have. Perhaps they used a giant Dragon Ball Z style Kamehameha together, and that opened it up. Perhaps their power was given to them by the sages because of bloodlines and people mating, and suddenly sage power everywhere, all across Hyrule, suddenly weaker spawned. Perhaps they just convinced the sages. Perhaps they didn't need to weaken their bloodline. Perhaps instead they were just like, hey, open this for me. And the sages were like, yes, this sounds like a great idea. suddenly Ganon. And my last theory is perhaps it has something to do with the magic mirror. Perhaps they crafted it in an attempt to open up this area. I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. I'm done talking tonight. Perhaps you guys wanted to know where the heck the entrance is to the Dark World. Some people are saying Ganon's Castle, because that's where he was sealed, Mr. Ganon himself. Perhaps it was the Temple of Time, since that's where you get inside Ocarina of Time. And some of you to say everywhere, due to tearing holes in reality, thanks to wizards and Aghanim and craziness and weakened sages and... Oh my goodness, guys. A wonderful show tonight. A wonderful time. It has been serving with you. Serving with you. Oh gosh, is this a war? It's an imprisoning war. That's for sure. So, reminder to tune in next week, Friday, 10 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Tune in live. Even if you're listening to this live recording up on YouTube or on the Radio Hyrule website, come to the live shows. They're so much fun. You get to listen to the great music and talk to us in the chat. I'm talking very fast. I ate a caffeinated chocolate bar before this show, and it was a horrible idea. Next week, we're talking about Zora royalty. So we're going to talk about King Zora. We're going to be talking about the big fish chick from Twilight Princess. Blinking on her name. Do your homework, Blake. I will later on. And a reminder, if you enjoyed tonight's show, to go to radiohyrule.com/donate. Give a little bit of love to Radio Hyrule for all the wonderful work they do in bringing a fully featured Zelda radio station to you 24/7, as well as shows like this one. And also, email me at mc@supermcgamer.com with any special requests you might have for the show. I'll do my best to fulfill them in some way, shape, or form in the future. Lastly, I would like to give a quick announcement about my personal projects. So as you know, I've been doing a Let's Play of Oracle Seasons. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. It's only 11 episodes so far, all of them under or around 20 minutes. It'll take you no time at all to get caught up. But episode 10 was fantastic. But a special announcement. Starting Monday, Monday following this episode going out, that'll be, I believe, September 1st. I don't know. I don't have a calendar in front of me. After that, every day of the week is going to have an episode. No longer will you have to wait on Saturday and Sunday for more Oracle Seasons. Oracle Seasons coming out every single day of the week, starting on Monday. So I hope you guys are really excited. I hope you guys are very excited to get more Zelda inside your YouTube schedule inboxes and things. Thanks for listening, everybody. To leave you off, I have one last song. It's Lady of the Lake by Chimpazilla. Keep it tuned in to Radio Hyrule. Thanks for listening in this evening, everybody. Buddy.